Hello, readers of Every Word, and welcome to Every Word 365. I'm your host, Christina Munoz-Madsen, and today we're reading Jeremiah 34 through 36. I know, these readings are so tough, am I right? If you are struggling, you are not alone. I wish I had better news for you, but even when Jeremiah comes to an end, it doesn't get much easier. Daniel and Jonah are nice because they're familiar stories, but they're so short compared to all the other doom and gloom from the prophets, which just seems to be never ending. So, my advice, do whatever you have to do to survive. Audio, paper clips, 3 times a day. We are totally in survival mode here, but we've all gone too far to quit, especially when most will quit in March or June. In March, the excitement of a new goal wears off. In June, it's summer and, well, Psalms for an entire month. So once you survive through those 2 markers, you have to keep going because you'll regret it if you don't. Also, when you get to the New Testament and look back at this part, it makes Jesus and all he did so much more meaningful because you know what he is saving us from. I kind of feel like people that don't force themselves to read through all this stuff may not appreciate it as much as we will, as much as you will, because you can do this. I'm just here to encourage you and tell you to keep on going. If you didn't start with us from the beginning, we'll do another one in January. We'll be doing the New Testament October 1st. You can do this. This is life-changing. This is not just a book, and that's why it means so much to me, and I'm so passionate about it. Okay, on to the readings. Does anyone else feel sorry for Jeremiah? Granted, one of my spiritual gifts is mercy, but still, he's chosen by God to warn the chosen people. And how do they respond? They try to kill him. Sheesh. I'd like to think we as a nation would respond differently, but I'm really not so sure. So today I'm including a link about the life of Jeremiah and what we can learn, and I just feel compelled to share this because it's so good and it really gives it more of a positive feeling when some of this doom and gloom can be a little on the negative side. Am I right? So here we go. No doubt, Jeremiah, who was only about 17 when God called him, had great inner turmoil over the fate of his people, and he begged them to listen. He is known as the weeping prophet because he cried tears of sadness, not only because he knew what was about to happen, but because no matter how hard he tried, the people would not listen. Parents out there, sometimes I feel that way with our kids, right? Obviously, the people of Israel had become so hardened by the numbing effects of sin that they no longer believed God, nor did they fear him. Jeremiah preached for 40 years, and not once did he see any real success in changing or softening the hearts and minds of his stubborn, idolatrous people. The other prophets of Israel had witnessed some successes, at least for a little while, but not Jeremiah. He was speaking to a brick wall. However, his words were not wasted. They were pearls being cast before swine, in a sense, and they were convincing every person who heard them and refused to heed the warning. Jeremiah tried to make the people understand their problem was a lack of belief, trust, and faith in God, along with an absence of fear, which caused them to take him for granted. It is very easy to be lulled into a false sense of security, especially when the focus is not on God. The nation of Israel, just like many nations today, had stopped putting God first and had replaced him with false gods, those that would not make them feel guilty or convict them of sin. That may sound fun, but that is not a good thing. What we learn from the life of Jeremiah is the comfort of knowing that, just like every believer, even great prophets of God can experience rejection, depression, and discouragement in their walk with the Lord. Have any of you ever felt rejection, depression, or discouragement? I know I have during my walk with the Lord. So I hope that brings you some comfort. This is a normal part of growing spiritually because our sinful nature fights against our new nature, that which is born of the Spirit of God, according to Galatians 5:17. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the sinful nature. They are in conflict with each other, so that you do not do what you want. But just as Jeremiah found, we can know that the faithfulness of our God is infinite. Even when we are unfaithful to him, he remains steadfast. Jeremiah was given the task of delivering an unpopular, convicting message to Israel, one that caused him great mental anguish, as well as making him despised in the eyes of his people. God says that his truth sounds like foolishness to those who are lost, but to believers, it is the very words of life. He also says that the time will come when people will not tolerate the truth. Those in Israel in Jeremiah's day did not want to hear what he had to say, and his constant warning of judgment annoyed them. This is true of the world today, as believers who are following God's instructions are warning the lost and dying world of impending judgment. Even though most are not listening, we must persevere in proclaiming truth in order to rescue some of the terrible judgment that will inevitably come. I hope that brings you comfort. Have you ever tried sharing an unpopular message like the salvation that comes with Christ to someone who doesn't want to hear it? Talk about talking to a brick wall. So if you're frustrated, if you're down, the weeping prophet can relate to you and you can relate to him. And that's why it's so important to read this even when it's tough. And I love today's daily walk. If your study of God's word does not change the way you live, either you are already perfect or not studying correctly. And I'm going to guess you're not already perfect, right? None of us are. We are all sinners and we all need to hear this and hopefully find comfort in knowing that we are not alone in trying to share what God has put on our hearts. Okay, tomorrow is Jeremiah 37 through 39. Happy reading.